Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the PowettPlay podcast. As always, it's me, Jordan Shannon. I'm joined by Kieran Powell. How are you, Kai?
Not too bad, Jordan. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. I'm a bit on edge. Never know. Might get the call. Might have to shoot off mid-podcast.
Sprinter's block.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Just take it as it comes. But I know obviously we're going to look at the second T20 in Jamaica, which obviously didn't go in the favour of West Indies. But we're also, we briefly just caught up before we joined the podcast. Obviously, we're going to want to have a bit of a discussion about the U19 tournament that's taking place as well, and some of the points that you made. I think it'll be really good to get people, to hear, let people listen to what you've got to say about that, really. But following on, obviously, from the second T20. Obviously, there wasn't much change in terms of performance wise from the first game. They just can't seem to get that firepower at all, can they? Go in from a batting perspective.
I just think that, okay, you look at the start. I know Shea. I know how Shea thinks. And Shea's always got this thing in his mind where he thinks as though he needs to be sort of an anchor in the event that something happens, but he really needs to stop thinking like that and he needs to jump out of the blocks. I mean, I think Brandon King has done an amazing job in the first two games as well.
He's having
Jumping out of
in a good patch of form at the minute, isn't he?
Yeah, but I think that T20 cricket has probably gone past the point of having someone anchor the innings now. I think that
Yeah.
you need to get out to as best to start, maximize that power play. So instead of looking to be 40, 50,
Yeah.
you, given from what we've seen against this Australian batting's hitting power, because
Yeah.
let's face it, they've got better hitting power than the West Indies. So they're beating the West Indies at the West Indies' game, quote unquote, but they're also beating the West Indies at the other facets of the game as well. So I think that the West Indies are going to need to be sort of 70, 80. I mean, you're going to sink it. It's a much smaller ground, so you're gonna have to be looking at if the pitch is prepared properly and
Yeah.
it plays how I think it's gonna play. You're looking at 230, 240
Pa.
minimum.
Right. Okay. But yeah. With what you're saying there, actually, do you think that he's always on erring on the side of caution at this moment in time, thinking I might have to just, anchor this innings. Do you think that's in the? You saying that's in the back of his mind then?
That's just his nature. That's just how Shea thinks. Like he likes to, I guess, be there in the event that something happens, as opposed to let me take this game on,
Yeah,
and if I get out, somebody else will do whatever they have to do. So
yeah,
he thinks sort of towards my first point, as opposed to going hard and letting the others take care of their part.
yeah. But how? I'm just trying to figure it out here moving forward because you look at, there's a lot of talk obviously with the announcement of Andre Russell retiring, and then there's a lot of highlight stuff featuring in terms of obviously the success and around the two T20 World Cups that they've won, and they talked about obviously himself and Kieran Pollard and Bravo and Narain, and obviously then that they had this identity and this blueprint, and I appreciate that the time, it has changed. Like you said, nowadays they don't seem to have batters who anchor roles and this and that. How do the West Indies ultimately, I know we keep touching on it, and I feel like it might be a little bit of repeating and stuff, but they've got to try and throw some players into this mix now that to try and work out this what is going to be our identity going into Sri Lanka in that World Cup. What is going to be the to give us that X factor in performance that's gonna win us games to get us out of a group stage. When is that going to take place? Do you see it happening going into this third T20?
I think that it looks like the West Indies are still trying to play um, 2016's version of T20 cricket in today's time frame. I don't think that that's applicable. Obviously, you don't have the same personnel,
No.
uh, cricket has evolved. T20 cricket has
Yeah.
definitely evolved drastically. And so the West Indies are going to have to look at, trying to step away from the identity of we have power hitters or we have whatever the case is. Because that's clearly not working. And other teams are, as I just briefly mentioned,
Yeah.
beating us at that facet of the game, but they're beating
Yeah.
us at all the other facets of the game as well. I
Yeah.
also think that this thing where we're going in with a lot of people that can do bits and pieces but are not necessarily specialists. I've never really been a fan of that um, at all. I think that we need to get more specialist bowlers into the team because I think our bowling attack just simply isn't good enough to contain against top level teams. And it's interesting because you look at the scores that are happening now.
Yeah.
When you look at what conditions are most likely going to be in an India and a Sri Lanka, in Asia for T20 cricket, it's generally very high scoring flat pitches.
Yeah.
So I saw Jason Holder bowling at 126.
Yeah.
I mean, people were chastising Matthew Ford for his lack of pace in the England series, where Jason Holder is bowling the exact same pace.
Yeah.
And you're not getting much from the bat from him anyway.
No.
Um,
No. And you
you
mentioned
know,
as well about the predictability aspect of it. You could see straight away
yeah,
that when Maxwell opened the batting purposely because he knew
yeah,
Keeler was going to open the bowling.
yeah,
It was that predictable that they went and changed the lineup to think, right, tell what he can go and face him off. And so they've got to think they can't be going into a World Cup with that level of predictability. It can't
yeah.
happen.
It's almost become now like teams know exactly what they're gonna do, and guys are just lining up to, I guess, take specific bowlers down in specific situations because you don't even have to preempt now. Like this is what's gonna
Yeah.
9 out of 10 times happen. I think that as well. From watching the game, I think that Sammy would have made a huge mistake in replacing Rodman Powell as captain. I think that was an emotional decision. That was probably something led by him trying to have more control over the team and the game. But that's not a coach's responsibility. That's a captain's responsibility. And I think that Rovman should have remained as captain of the T20 side. If you want Shea to play, that's all well and good. That's fine. But I think that Rovman had a better, I guess, grip. And obviously, because he would have been doing it for a lot longer, he plays a lot more T20 cricket. That's his particular niche.
Yeah.
He would have been the West Indies
Yeah.
T20 captain for a while leading up into that World Cup. I think that experience would have actually served him well going into this upcoming World Cup in terms of what went wrong and what needed to
Change.
change.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a lot of background rumors in terms of, as to specifically why Rodman was replaced. And, as I said, personally, for me, I think that was definitely a mistake looking at how things are transpiring now. But there are even bigger issues on the horizon for the West Indies because you look at the current under 19 tournament, for example,
Yeah.
I can see that the USA are top of the charts. When I used to play under 19, the USA were, if you're out of form, it's a chance to
Yeah.
get some form back. It's a warm up match in the middle of a tournament sort of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas now, our best regional youth players can't beat a USA team, and people are going to say, well, the USA is a international team as opposed to regional teams. But if you're talking about reality here, the
Yeah.
USA under 19 team should not realistically be beating the best youth players for the respective
No.
regions
No.
across the West Indies, because if you put them to play in, let's say, a domestic competition in India or in England or Australia, they definitely won't be top of the charts. So that tells you not only where West Indies cricket is at now,
Yeah.
but what the future of West Indies cricket is, and the amount of work that is at hand for West Indies. Like it's really sad because a lot of people don't look at youth level cricket, so they just think of, oh, okay, let's drop this guy and bring someone else.
Yeah.
And that's been sort of the thing in West Indies cricket for the
Yeah.
longest while. Let's play youth. you only play youth when youth show you that they're good enough. You look at
You've always
any
said that.
business. Yeah, you look at any business, like it's always senior executives. There's a reason why it's called senior executives. You
Yeah,
look at school, you don't go to school and graduate at kindergarten or grade one. You graduate at the end of sixth year, you know?
yeah, of course.
So it's we've been doing a lot of things wrong and sort of making it worse for ourselves by getting rid of the experienced players and forcing
Yeah,
inexperienced youth in. Like you look at even regional cricket now, it's a
yeah,
lot of young players, so a lot of players that are just learning their trade and they'll
yeah,
probably only settle down and start performing probably in the next 4 or 5 years.
yeah,
By that time, people will be saying it's time to get rid of them and get in more youth. So you're just continually investing and wasting money, wasting time, because when your investment is supposed to pay off, you reinvest into something that's going to take the next 4 or 5 years
yeah,
before you get results.
yeah.
So
And that's where
it's
you like you've spoken before about like report, not necessarily report, sorry, but like investment. You'd be better off taking a report and looking into the real detail of this under-19 tournament and taking each of the regions and not necessarily looking at performance, which you should do, but look into like you mentioned about what's happening practicing wise in terms of facility wise. Like how can, like you mentioned there when you were playing, how can Australia go from the whipping boys to that? It can't, how has that happened?
it's crazy because, for example, you look at this under 19 tournament, the Leeward Islands are being coached by the assistant coach for the senior Leeward Islands team.
Yeah,
And they are basically in last position. I mean, obviously you have the USA's second team,
yeah,
but if you have that level of coaching, how can you be last?
yeah,
But then, as you said, you talk about preparation, etc.
yeah.
The Leeward Islands doesn't have an under 19 tournament, Jordan.
No,
What they do is they combine an under 15 and an under 17. So you're trying to pick two teams from one tournament. That can't work
no,
because then you're cutting short half of the eligible players for each age group. So how do you know someone could not be, let's say, favored or seen as whatever to a coach, but he may come into a tournament and
yeah,
have an amazing tournament, and he may be someone that you then go forth and develop. But
yeah,
if you're not giving them the opportunity to showcase those skills, how you're cutting, look, you're literally shooting yourself in the foot and
yeah,
expecting to have great results, like expecting to run a marathon with a broken foot or a gunshot wounded foot. It
yeah.
doesn't work.
No, no. And that, as we've been speaking over the last few weeks about all this, it's each time we seem to speak, we seem to look in a different avenue, and you see more, I don't want to say issues, but other sort of cracks that are not necessarily cracks. They're more like, you know, what my terminology obviously in terms of that, but everywhere you look in terms of obviously from regional cricket, everything is linked, but it's also so it's not spoken about and it's not highlighted. And part of the comments that we get, with people asking you questions and that, and in the comments here is that people are like, you know, talk. This is it's mind blowing for me. And I watch and I read a lot, obviously, about the ECB and the England cricket side of things over here, and the difference is huge. But the passion that you have in the Caribbean, I'm not saying it's not the same in England at all, passion wise and fan wise, but it's like everything to the Caribbean cricket, and I mentioned identity as a playing identity, but it's West Indies cricket is massive for the Caribbean, and I don't know, maybe I'm rambling a little bit with it, but it seems to be, like I said, there's so many different bits that just seem to they just sound like a bit squat, round peg square. So you know what I mean? It just doesn't seem to be flowing in the right direction, and I don't know. It's obviously alarming, and you mentioned in there, obviously from a Leeward Island perspective, from a coach, it's obviously something's not right. Then you're not seeing success.
Look,
So
it's so many, I guess, moving parts because like everyone wants to have a say, everyone wants to be involved, but then
yeah,
no one wants to necessarily take responsibility.
yeah,
You've got CARICOM, obviously. You've got the West Indies Cricket Board. You've got to deal with each specific island,
Yeah.
and everyone operates differently within the same island. So obviously, cricket is the only thing that unifies the Caribbean because
Yeah.
there's nothing really called the West Indies. Like,
No, I
you have
know.
different
Yeah.
islands.
Yeah.
We're all coming together for a common good.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
look at, for example, what I cannot remember for the life of me the name of this company. Somebody please comment. Somebody from Jamaica comment. But Dr. Mansing's son, look at how much people they have been able to get back into the stands in Jamaica.
Yeah.
Now tell me why the West Indies Cricket Board can't go and speak with them and even hire them to try and do the same thing across the Caribbean for all the different venues. Or if not them, create an umbrella where you get younger people involved into the
Yeah.
administration of West Indies cricket because we've seen the impact
Yeah.
they've had. The grounds in Jamaica for the test matches and the two T20 matches have been completely sold out.
Yeah.
And it's puzzling to me because the West Indies board always goes and speaks to, okay, let's say, for example, this emergency meeting that they've called with the Sir Vivian Richards, the Sir Clive Lloyds, Brian Lara, Shipton Shanabal, etc. That is to me a futile effort because these guys, in my opinion, have a different role to play in West Indies cricket, and that's more from the mentorship advisory type of thing.
Yes.
But you can't ask them what's wrong with West Indies cricket today. You have to ask the players today
Yeah.
that you look at the Nicholas Puran, the
Yeah.
Andre Russell, the Dwayne Bravos, the Chris
Yeah.
Gales, the Kieran Pollards, the Sunil Narayans, the Jewel Andrews, the guys playing under 19. That's the group of players that you need to ask what is wrong with West Indies cricket because let's say the main T20 guys that I just mentioned, the Dwayne Bravos, the Chris Gales, etc. Why did you guys choose to go and play T20 cricket? What went wrong? What did we not do? What did we not provide for you? How did we not support you?
Yeah.
You go to the under 19 age group. What do you need or what do you think you need from us to help you to get to where we need you to get to for West Indies cricket to get to where it needs to get to? So you can't keep going back to
No.
yesteryear to try
No.
and fix today. You have to address the
Yeah.
people today that are obviously experiencing the issues and choosing to go another route and address those issues to rectify the cricket now
Yeah.
and for the future. You can't be if my house is got a broken tap today, I can't go and look at the floor plan from
When it was first
25
built.
years ago, when it was first built. So many things have
No.
changed. I need to address it today.
Yeah.
So I think that, if West Indies Cricket Board does that and starts incorporating a lot more, I guess, recently based players and current players, people who are currently active and playing and
Yeah.
want to be a part of the administration, want to help in terms of getting West Indies cricket better, then I think that will go a long way towards helping West Indies cricket because what's happening now is just heartbreaking.
It is, but the person you mentioned there, and it's triggered straight away, was Jewel Andrew. So you spoke so highly of him. He's obviously been, he's now featured playing international cricket a couple of times now. So you take him now at the age he is, and ultimately what you've got to work out is by speaking to him or however you go about it. How do we maintain you playing for West Indies over three formats? Whether I know we mentioned before about ultimately you might not be ready just yet to play T20, but obviously the future is the future. So at the age he is now, you want him to play across all three formats over the next 10, 15, more so. So how do you keep him to be focused about representing the West Indies and playing for the West Indies rather than the other pathways that some of the players have obviously taken? And that's when you, like you mentioned there, about looking at, going back, focus on now, and you've got a very, very good generational talented player. So let's focus on making sure that we give him the ultimate support that he feels supported and he wants to then represent West Indies more so than whatever gets thrown his way.
And that doesn't mean that he won't go and play leagues or whatever the case
Fine.
is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but that just means that when we need you, you will be available. And
Yes.
that also means, from a West Indian standpoint, that we don't go and select him for a T20 series at 18. That also means that we groom him and work him into international cricket
Yeah.
slowly,
Yeah.
methodically.
Yeah.
That also means that we have the right coaches and mentors
Yeah.
around him,
Yeah.
the right advisors, how to not only spend your time, how to develop yourself as a person,
Yeah.
learn how to spend your finances, how to manage your finances,
Yeah.
all these other aspects. Because at
Definitely.
18, you've not had all of that. And then everything, the world comes rushing at you one
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So there's a
Definitely.
lot of different moving parts in terms of building a cricketer, building a professional athlete. So
Definitely.
it's things like that that will help players be retained by the West Indies Cricket Board, as opposed to running to yesteryear and trying
Exactly.
to figure out today's problems.
And that's it. And that's when the conversations can take place with your Andre Russells and your Dwayne Browers. What would you have done differently? These opportunities that came your way, when you look back now, you've obviously made a fantastic career out of yourself. You're financially secure. You played in the IPL. You played in all the major franchise tournaments. What would you have done differently, and how can I get the balance between representing the West Indies over three formats at the highest, playing at the highest of my ability can, but also, making sure that obviously I do want to go and play IPL because I want to get better. Or that's when your resources, and that's where you, like you mentioned in there about these mentors, can really help somebody.
And I think that a lot of it, because a lot of people think that it's just solely financially based. I mean, obviously, a player has to
Of
set
course.
himself up for the future, for life after cricket.
Yeah.
But they'll find that a lot of it comes down to the way that players have been treated, um, and the facilities. Facilities.
Mhm.
Those are going to be two consistent points that I bet you, if they undertake an exercise like this, those are going to be two of the main talking points that they get from a lot of these players.
And it'd be great to get somebody on and speak about that openly about it without the feeling of obviously, like we have had people come on and speak so openly about their situation. I think it'd be great to get to somebody on to talk about that because it's important. And you've mentioned there about resource that is within the Caribbean, and you've the meeting that takes place. You're talking about greats of the game. We know these elements of the relevance of it and how it will work in the modern day, but you've still got that modern day player that can still help now. And like you mentioned there, from a facility perspective, it's just a case of ensuring that this next group of players that come through don't end up in the same way. So in 10 years' time, you're now talking about, for instance, Jules Andrew doing what Nicholas Pooran has, and you've lost, you know, we're talking about him handing his international retirement, and you think, how's that happened?
And that's the thing. So it's we look at the performances on the field, but we have to look at it holistically and understand the big picture of what's really going wrong with West Indies cricket. That's just a small subsection of the entire system.
Yeah,
Obviously you want the players to play better, to win games, whatever the case is, but you have to
yeah,
look at it from a holistic point of view.
yeah,
How do we prepare our players? How do we select our players? How do we keep our players motivated and interested?
yeah,
Because as we all know, even more so now than ever, a player literally doesn't have to play international cricket, and international cricket may stop them from making more money.
yeah,
As I said, I don't think it's all financially motivated. But another thing that strikes me is that the CPL, which should be the West Indies, I guess, breeding ground for new talent, has a lot of people that aren't playing for the West Indies or aren't interested in playing for the West Indies. So it's counterproductive because you're not developing any talent there. You're not getting anyone exposed to overseas players and
no.
bringing that information back into the regional setup. So what's the purpose of the CPL?
Well, we spoke about that before, and I'm sure in due course we'll end up discussing that. Obviously, once it starts to drum up towards August time, anyway. But I think though, yeah, it's difficult really because every time we end up sort of. speaking about the performances or the recent game like we have started here, and you end up naturally just digressing because it's not just as black and white as the 40 overs that's taken place, or it wasn't 40 overs, but the T from a 2020 perspective, it's always going back further into like infrastructure. It's always going back to motivation towards representing West Indies, or it's always going back to the importance of, from a player's perspective and things. And it's a shame that seems to always be the talking point that leads back to, rather than you know, if there's going to be positive situations in performances, and there has been over the past 6, 7, 8 months and stuff. But ultimately, like it just feels like it just tweaks back to that infrastructure perspective. And at some point, I just want it to pass, maybe, and it be addressed and looked at, so you can start to look towards like thinking, wow, this is a bright future. And there is signs there, because we spoke about that from a bowling perspective. We spoke about that from, some of the youth players that are coming through. So I don't know, maybe down the line, people will start to understand where what you're speaking about and why you're speaking about it, and the importance of that as well.
I mean, there's no shortage of talent, definitely in the pathway system. I mean, and that's even with people going to other things like, let's say, basketball, football,
Yeah,
um, the American influence in the Caribbean,
yeah,
um, people quote unquote losing interest in cricket. People still love cricket in the Caribbean. Like everyone in the Caribbean knows
of course.
when the West Indies are doing good, and everyone knows when the West Indies aren't doing well.
No.
Um, so if you put the right systems in place, if you get um, the coaches upskilled, you have everyone working towards something,
Yeah,
and you could have so many different angles, because you can have incentives in coaches' contracts, for example, that when X amount of players perform
yeah,
at a certain standard, then you get a bonus, or you're likely to move on to, a higher level team if your players are performing, so that makes coaches want to put in the work, that makes players want to help their coaches to advance as well. There's so many different things.
of course.
Um, Ultimately, at the end of the day, the players, it's down to them.
Yeah,
But you can only do as much as you can based on the infrastructure and the facilities and the people you have around you.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I think it's good to talk about things like we have done, and obviously breaking it down again. But we've got a guest, haven't we, on Monday as well? So that'll be a good episode. Um, I'm sure that you will all like to listen to him. He's an experience, been there, done that.
Very special guests. Very special guests.
Yes, definitely, definitely. So yeah, look forward to that on Monday. Whether I'm have a special guest myself, I'm not sure in between.
Hopefully we have two special guests.
Yeah, no, that would be nice. That would be nice. But anyway, yeah, thank you very much for listening to this episode of the PowettPlay podcast. As always, we do appreciate it. Continue to keep liking and subscribing in the comments. Karen will get back to you. But yeah, appreciate all the love and the likes that we're getting at the minute. It means a lot to us both. So thank you so much.
Thank you.